welcome to the Monday evening.
You love ball like I do. After Dark, it's a must-listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark. John Fanta, Tyler Hansbrough, Mike LaTulip with you on this Tuesday night, February 25th, 2025. And it is that time of year, right, guys, where bubble teams are fighting for their lives. Certain teams just want to make it official, punch in their ticket to the big dance. You can break through. You're at the end of the regular season, so sometimes the heavyweights go down, and we saw a couple of top 10 teams fall tonight, which is exactly where we begin. We begin in Athens, where the Georgia Bulldogs, what a job Mike White has done there with expectations of breaking through, making the NCAA tournament. They welcome in Florida tonight. Florida comes back. They're in position. And Blue Cane, he had ice water in his veins. And Asa Newell wouldn't let Georgia lose. And Silas Demery was big time. 88-83, Georgia beats Florida. Mike LaTulip. We thought that Georgia could break through this year. It's been up. It's been down. It's the SEC. Tonight, you get a home opportunity against the third-ranked team in the country, and the Bulldogs seized it. What impressed you the most?
I think just the mental toughness through it all. You could say that for both sides, the comeback for Florida as well as the ability for Georgia to, I mean, not many teams have been able to stop the Florida Avalanche once it happens, and they were able to do that and pull themselves out of it tonight. I thought, I know they lost by 12 against Auburn in the last game, but if you watch that game, it was much closer than the 12-point result would suggest. And I thought Auburn played with their food a little bit in that game, and I thought Georgia gained some confidence from it, going in to the jungle and being really competitive throughout. And that carried over into the beginning of this game. And if you're Georgia, this is probably one of the biggest exhales of the season, you would think, right? 55% from three, about even on the glass with Florida, a 26-point lead at one point. If you didn't get out of there with that win, that's about as demoralizing as it gets. But you did your work early. These guys stepped up. They made shots. They made Florida pay for virtually every defensive mistake that they made. You go under a screen, Dembry steps back, makes a shot. You close out short on Newell. He puts one in your eye. And then when they went to the press to try to slow things down, Florida still had to communicate out of it. And when they miscommunicated, you were right at the rim to finish. And so they were able to hold off a Florida team. I mean, Will Richard was unbelievable tonight, keeping Florida in that game. But this should be a major confidence booster once again for Georgia. And the way you got to finish out this SEC slate is just stay alive, man. Stay in the fight. And despite them letting go of that lead tonight, they were right there in at the end and threw the haymaker to end it.
You know, Tyler, before I get to you here, this is a Georgia team that now owns wins over Florida, Kentucky, and St. John's on a neutral floor. I mean, they're on the outside looking in when it comes to the bubble picture. At least starting the night, they certainly were. They were in that next four-out column. But in the SEC, Tyler, if you could capitalize, when you get one of these heavyweights in and you look at the bubble picture, which the bubble's soft. I mean, this is a soft bubble. This is a bubble that shows the tournament really shouldn't expand. But you win a game like tonight, Tyler, and that could totally shift things. And Georgia, they found a way to get this done. Scored 88 points. You know, when you look at it from a metric standpoint, Florida had the seventh best defense in the country, according to Ken Pomeroy, and the Bulldogs scored 88 on them.
Yeah, and, you know, the beauty of playing the SEC is you're going to have your chance to build your resume any single night. And I really felt like Georgia has done a good job on their home court. Like you talked about, I saw them get a big win against Kentucky there. And I watched the Auburn game. They almost beat Auburn on their home court, and they beat Oklahoma as well. I really feel like this team can be explosive. I do think they're young. I like the Asa Newell kid. And Demery had an unbelievable night. But Florida, they let it slip defensively tonight. And I will say Georgia, they flirted a little bit with turning the ball over. I don't think they handled the press or the pressure that Florida put on them defensively late in the game. I think Florida also kind of bailed them out by trying to shoot the three ball and go for the home run play towards the end of the game. But, you got to give Georgia their credit. This is a tough team. Florida is one of the best teams in the country. They have the ability to go on a deep tournament run. For Georgia to pull this one out at home should give them some confidence and maybe some momentum to build their resume a little bit more in the SEC.
Mike, the other side is Florida loses. And look, Florida is a team that we talk about in the national championship race. And we've talked about them right near the top of the country. It's one game. But if you had an overarching thought on what determines whether or not Florida makes it to San Antonio or what could hold them back, if anything, that comes to your mind, what is it?
I think the one thing that would come to my mind is they do have lapses sometimes to start games. We saw it at South Carolina. They've dug themselves in a hole on a few occasions this year. South Carolina, they're able to come back and win that game. Georgia obviously has a little bit more talent than South Carolina and makes it a little bit more difficult on you. But honestly, like my opinion on Florida doesn't change too much after tonight. I think they still have as good a chance as anybody to cut down the nets in April. And part of that is because when I watch a game, and I get it, they dug themselves into that hole tonight. Georgia, give Georgia a lot of credit. Again, they stepped up and made shots, some of which were contested in that first half. But there is a very, very small list of teams that could mount that type of comeback on the road. Very, very small. And I'm big on when I watch a team, and I'm sure, Fanta, Tyler, you can agree with me. There's just a certain feeling that a team gives you when you watch them. And that can sometimes play into how you feel about that team and how you forecast that team. And this Florida team got down 25-26, and I was really sitting there like, this isn't over. It didn't feel over. The pace that they play with, they're a possession team where they will get more possessions, whether it's getting them back on the offensive glass or just the overall pace that they play with. So I'm not concerned at all. This was a must-win game for Georgia. But yeah, I think, look, in when you look at SEC play in general, right? And Tyler, you touched on it. I think I see all the time. It's like, well, look, we've played all these top 25 teams in a row, and like if you're an ACC team, you're begging for those type of opportunities. So Florida gets these night in, night out, and for the most part this year, they've passed those tests with flying colors. So again, like my opinion on them doesn't change as being, a real title contender up there at the top with any of those big dogs.
I agree. I think, Tyler, what you said is true. When Florida contained Georgia defensively and they applied ball pressure and they were in them, and they still allowed 88 points in the game, but they had a stretch in this game where Georgia went silent and couldn't score and had a lot of trouble to close them out. And then, look, Georgia's at home. They're desperate. The desperate dog's going to win this time of year, Tyler. I'd like to get your reflection on it, because when you were at Carolina, you got everybody's best shot. But tell me, when you were playing a bubble team at this time of year, how much did that change how the game was played?
Yeah, Fancy, you're right. The hungry dog is the fastest dog. And, when you have an opportunity like this.
Well, Tyler, I'm hungry, but I'm not fast. So I'm just telling you, let's be
I'm right
honest
there,
here.
man. I'm chasing you. I'm not that fast anymore. So I'll just say the one thing is, yeah, Georgia is building the resume. And, when I looked at their net ranking, they're not that far out of it. They are a bubble team. Their net ranking's 40. That will improve with this win over Florida. But, yes, they have the talent. The Asa Newell kid is an NBA player. He is a dynamic big. I've always liked him. Is he going to continue to have guys step up and give him a little bit of help? That's going to be a big question. And also, Georgia plays very well at home. They're going to have to figure it out how to take it on the road and get some wins if they actually want to make a little bit of a run, because I do think maybe a resume helper would definitely get would be to get some wins in the SEC tournament here in a couple weeks.
You think about it, Mike, when you look at the national scene, Georgia, from a metric standpoint, we pulled up their file a few moments ago, but they entered the night with a net of 40. KPI, which is Kevin Paga's system, has them at 58. They're around a couple of other bubble teams like an SMU, like an Arkansas. They're hovering around with them as well. Xavier is right there with them. Like 6 quad 1 wins now. I mean, there's not a lot of bubble teams that are going to own. They're at 2 now. They have 3, but they have no bad losses. Like, they have a combined 6 quad 1-2 victories, and they have no losses outside of the top quadrant. So a top 40 net. You are 3-0 against Q2, 3-0 against Q3, 8-0 against quad 4. You just got your 3rd quad 1 win. Mike, there's a lot of bubble teams that have 1, some of which have 0 quad 1 victories. This team has a combined 6 in the top 2 quads, and there are no terrible blemishes. I don't know. Here's what I say. I know they might be in the first 4 out right now after a win like that, and they still might be on the outside looking in. But I know this much with Georgia. If they make the tournament, which I think they can after a win like this, it'll be because of tonight. You go to Texas Saturday night. Then you go to South Carolina. It's all out there in front of you, Mike. If you were to win the next 2, then you get Vandy at home. Why not? Like, this is a team that has the talent that if they get in as an 11 seed, which I kind of think that based on their schedule, they have every opportunity to get in. They'll be kicking themselves if they're not, because when you own what they when you own what they do on their resume with no bad losses at all, you play in the best conference in the country, and you have a chance to get a 4th or a 5th Q1 win. History suggests that's a team that ends up hearing their name called when their net's in the top 40. They play in this league, and there are no areas on their resume where you say that's not good.
Other thing that comes into play here, whether we want to admit it or not, is the brand, because they have a better resume than Baylor, flat out. They do. And and part of that is in the beginning of the season, Baylor's ranked 11th, and then the come down is a little bit longer for us to go and look and say, well, they really have 3 good wins this year. One was a miracle win against St. John's, and then the other one against Kansas when Kansas completely tricked that game. And Georgia's sitting here with not only wins against, like you said, against Kentucky. You mentioned the Florida win. And there's in the St. John's win as well. I mean, they got really, really quality wins, no quality losses. And I've watched a ton of teams on the bubble. This looks like an NCAA tournament team, and I think it should be. But they also have to take care of business here down the stretch. I mean, I think Xavier's in this, outside of the Creighton game that they have coming up, Xavier's in kind of a control your own destiny type mode with their schedule, and Georgia's right there too. And that game against Vanderbilt may end up being in Texas too. I mean, you got a chance here, multiple chances here coming up to, basically have like almost a play-in with 2 different bubble teams in Texas and Vanderbilt in a way. So it's a massive, massive next 3 games for Georgia to position yourself to get to the SEC tournament, and then hope that you've done enough work, and then you're just it's icing on the cake, whatever you do in the SEC tournament if you get some wins.
Let's move to the ACC. Let's move to the Duke Blue Devils, who followed up a blowout win by 43 over Illinois, who we'll get to in a little bit. Is Illinois back? That's gonna come on tonight's show. And Duke beats Miami 97-60. Now it's no surprise that they beat up on Miami, but Tyler, I got to ask you this: is Duke your front runner to win the national championship now?
No, and a big reason for that is because Alabama, I picked them early on, and I want to stay committed to Alabama. I'm going to be hard-headed. But Duke is in a short list of teams that I feel like is a true contender. When I watch them play and when I watch them in person, they're much better than I anticipated. And also, you can't mimic their length, their physicality, and how hard they play. They're a young team that plays extremely hard. And when you have their athletic abilities, and I'm not just talking about Cooper Flagg, I'm talking about the Maluwatch kid that protects the paint, controls the rim, contests everything, and challenges everybody's shot. When you have a guy like that that's 7'3", and also he'll switch on a point guard and he can move his feet, he makes everything difficult. And I'm not just talking about Maluwatch's length either. They are the longest team in college basketball, so they have the ability to make up for a lot of defensive flaws with their length and their athleticism as well. And you know what? They play hard. My only question with Duke is, and I've had the same question with them all season, is when they get late in games and it comes down to a one-possession game and they need a bucket to score, are they going to continue to put Cooper Flagg in an ISO situation and rely on him too much instead of disguise the ISO and get some type of action that leads to a better shot than just sticking him on a wing and doing a clear out, which they've lost every time he's done that. So that would be my only question, but Duke is definitely on that short list, and you've got to give Shire a lot of credit for this year, because he is doing it with a young team. He's disproved my theory that these fifth-year guys are the only way you can win the tournament. You look at Cooper Flagg, Maluwatch, Con Knipple, they're all freshmen and they're winning, they're playing smart, and they're making great basketball decisions too.
Mike, is this the best team in the country?
I mean, I feel like you're splitting hairs between them and Auburn right now. And Houston's creeping up too. Alabama obviously obliterates Mississippi State tonight. But Duke to me, I mean, they would be my pick to win the national championship at this point, because this was another just obliteration tonight. And I'm kind of tired of the whole ACC narrative. I mean, this is dominance at the Power 4 now level that you just don't see often. And what continues to impress me is that this is a really young team, and yet better than anyone in America, they play to their standard every single night. And on top of that, I mean, they don't play down to their competition. They don't relax. They don't shift gears because it's Miami. And that all starts with Jon Scheyer to me. I think there's a competitiveness, there's an intensity, there's a relatability aspect to the way that he coaches that I think permeates throughout this team. All their NBA prospects that are going to be one and done, they possess that. Their role guys that they brought in out of the portal, Sion James and Mason Gillis and Malik Brown. I know Brown's been out, but they all possess that. I mean, they're pulling all the right strings right now, and Shire's done that. I mean, they got a bunch of killers, man. They do, and they beat you by 35. And they don't blink. They don't change expression because they expect it. And that's the stuff that makes me a believer, is that killer instinct and that discipline. I mean, we just see it every night in and night out with Duke. It's like militant with them. And that's what's so impressive. So if your main argument for Duke, their resume, you stack them up against anybody and what they've done. If your main argument for Duke is that it's youth that you can't buy into, you need to find a new argument.
The Duke Blue Devils are an absolute wagon. There are no holes to this team. None. Defensively, the length is imposing. They guard you off the bus. The way that they defended Illinois, a lot of people on Saturday night were like, well, Illinois is missing open shots. Yeah, but there were some guys that were unsettled with those shots, and there were other reasons why those guys were taking certain shots because of Duke's game plan. Duke dictated the game plan to a degree that it felt like a varsity team versus a junior varsity team in the second half. That shouldn't be against a Big Ten team. Saturday night defeated the argument that it's all about them being propped up in a weak ACC. I don't care that Illinois has been in a bad way, because look what Illinois is doing tonight. They've obviously responded. And the biggest thing is, it's not Cooper Flagg. Like, it's not just Cooper Flagg. He is the best prospect in America, But when he has one field goal make on Saturday night and they proceed to win a game by 43, I mean, tonight, he had 16 points. Like Zion's year, he averaged 22 per game. He was the centerpiece in every way. We were talking at times throughout that season, Tyler, we're like, if Williamson doesn't play great, this team they're just nowhere near the same. Flagg plays okay. Now, he's an elite defender, but he could play fine offensively. Doesn't have to be outstanding. And to his credit, Tyler, and this is my favorite part about Flagg, he knows how good he is, but he doesn't have to try to show it every time out on the floor because he cares about the betterment of the team.
Yeah. Fanta, I agree with you. And the thing that, as a North Carolina guy, I hate that I like Flagg so much because he's talking about he wants to come back to college. In this era of, as college basketball is changing so much. I've said this all along. Cooper Flagg is so talented that a lot of Duke's young guys and how good they are and some of their best qualities and, it doesn't get showcased or talked about because it's overlooked because Cooper Flagg is a highlight player or he's just one of these generational guys that comes in and everybody kind of gets caught up in the awe of his game. Maluwatch, to me, he is a top 10 NBA prospect, easy, no question about it. Con Knipple can be an NBA guy. And also, I hate that we have to credit Duke so much on this show tonight, and I hate, Fanta, that how much you love Duke. But Tyrese Proctor has really made a huge improvement, and I'm not sure if that's because there hasn't been as much pressure on him to really take a leap like there's been in the past years. But his shooting has come a long way, and he's also another guy that's lengthy, can handle the ball, and you got to give him credit for playing well too.
We got a break coming up. We head down to Stillwater, where they're going to be partying all night long because the Pokes, the Cowboys, they made a statement tonight welcoming in Iowa State. We'll talk about an upset down south next.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. Bet insurance tokens, odds boosts, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two here or there. Be sure to keep your eye out in the app for the Field of 68 specials that we'll be running throughout the season as well. So go download the BetMGM app to sign up today. College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rhythm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rhythm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rhythm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rhythm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rhythm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rhythm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. Tyler Hansbrough, you ever been to the state of Oklahoma?
I have. Oklahoma City. That's the only city I've been in Oklahoma.
What's it like?
It's probably not as nice as what's going on in Stillwater right now. I give you I would rather be in Stillwater right now. Oklahoma City didn't really do it for me. It's not Vegas.
Look, I'd want to be in Stillwater right now too because Mike LaTulip, they're partying. And when Steve Lutz gets this job, it's not going to be easy, right? I mean, talking with him earlier in the season, they had a game of his in December. He said, this is how we have to build it out. He's like, yeah, it's NIL, but we got to play a certain way. He likes to play fast. He didn't necessarily have the personnel to do it, a ton, but he still is trying to play that way. Well, tonight you get a taste of what Oklahoma State basketball can be. And people don't realize the kind of tradition with Coach Sutton and the players that they've had through the years. You go back, like the players that have come through Oklahoma State, Cade included, Cade Cunningham. Tonight they beat Iowa State 74-68. Now, it bears noting, you don't have Keyshawn Gilbert, who's out with a muscle strain. And Iowa State's not the same team without him. And the Cyclones, they get beat, over the weekend by Houston. It's a very hard-fought game. You sometimes feel the after effects of a Houston game in the Big 12. Then how do you play your next game? So this was not an easy one. They knew they were going to get Oklahoma State's best shot. They did. Abu Usman had 25, 6, and 4 steals. He was big time. And if you're a Cowboys fan tonight, Mike LaTulip, you're thinking, okay, here's what's possible for my program in the future years. On the other side for Iowa State here, we've considered them as a Final Four contender. They're not at full strength, but this does it definitely gets me a little bit concerned, big picture, Mike, about them because of the fact that we know it's about health, it's about peaking at the right time, about a lot of variables, and they fall tonight to a team that still is near the bottom of the league.
Yeah, and quickly on Lutz, I think I admire the fact that he comes in from Texas A&M Corpus Christi and then over from Western Kentucky and then eventually over to Oklahoma State. And yeah, he has his certain way of playing. There's havoc in it. There's chaos in it. You play fast, try to turn you over. And, he is still sticking with that, knowing that there were going to be growing pains this year as he tried to get, kind of build the plane while he's flying it in still water. So it's great to have wins like these that I think, reaffirm that you're building the right way and you're on the right track. But for Iowa State, it's tough because you're right. Health is really important. And Keyshawn Gilbert is such a fixture and a big component to what they do on both ends. He is, probably their main source of paint pressure and getting the ball downhill, putting pressure on the defense, opening things up for his teammates, getting to the free throw line. That settles your team offensively. Defensively, he's your point of attack defensively. If it's not Lipsy, he's getting in gaps. He's a rover. He does all those things that I think make Iowa State Iowa State. So it's hard to sit here and be like, sky is falling for the Cyclones when they're missing a key piece like that. Because what his absence does, and you saw it tonight and in the last game, and they played through Joshua Jefferson a lot. They like to use those tandem bigs with him and Jackson, but he's having the ball in his hands more than he usually does when Gilbert's out. So it's 7 turnovers tonight for Jefferson. It was another 4 in the game against Houston. So 11 turnovers in his last 2 games. That's not going to get it done. And they need Gilbert back. That goes without saying. But all those pieces we talked about, I think we talked about this 3 or 4 weeks ago, was the thing we really liked about Iowa State was, their starters and then their role guys, Heisey and Chatfield. Like, these guys are so good in the roles that they're in, but when you elevate them, it's, it has a lesser effect. And so the depth, I think, was always going to be a question mark if guys went down, and we've seen that kind of play out. So they need Gilbert back. That goes without saying. And then you just see if you can gain some continuity with him coming back. And the 2 seed is probably, with a loss like this, you probably maybe slide down to 3. But you don't want to slide to the 4, slide to the 5 with a major fall off and have to, face some 1 seeds if you make a Sweet 16.
Tyler, any thoughts?
Yeah, if I'm Iowa State, I kiss a 1 seed goodbye, and also I kiss a 2 seed goodbye. If you look at their record on the road, 5-6, not going to cut it. They've got to do better on the road, and they've got to take the show on the road. And I understand they're hurt, but if you look tonight, they had a lot of turnovers. Turnovers killed them. 18 turnovers, and I know Steve Lutz because I actually watched a lot of his games at Western Kentucky last year. And he's an old school coach, gets out and run. The teams get out and run. But also, I like his style because he takes that big and he hedges and he puts a lot of pressure on the other team defensively, and he makes teams turn the ball over. So I think that kind of showed a little bit of vulnerabilities with Iowa State tonight. But, with that said, you've got to take the show on the road. And I'm not going to buy a team as a true quality tournament deep run team if you're just going to have a losing record on the road.
The turnover issue is a big problem. And this time of year, we talk about it like, yeah, you want Keyshawn Gilbert back to be at your best. But Mike and Tyler, you know this. Sometimes when a guy's battling an injury, he's being held out, then he comes back. That could shake up the apple cart, too, of like, okay, let's figure it out, but it's late. And two, we don't know how healthy he is. And that's a guy who's had a terrific season. You hate to see this because I thought that Iowa State, the way they can give teams fits defensively, the way that they were scoring, though, like we were talking about earlier this year, we're like, what's the biggest difference? Well, they've got multiple offensive weapons. But tonight, you just said it, Tyler. I mean, Oklahoma State tries to take you out of your stuff, suffocate you defensively, and they forced 18 turnovers in this game. And Mike, Gilbert or not, when we're holding you to the standard of 2 seed or 3 seed, which in our fielding the 68, the Cyclones yesterday were on the 2 line. And I don't know if this is a total seed line drop, but Mike, I think that's the big picture concern here is this is a club that when we're talking about, they were the final 2. So now they probably moved to the 3 line with this loss. And that's not where we had this team 3 weeks ago. It's just not.
Not even just the Gilbert injury. I mean, Momcilovic was out for a little while. Lipsy's been dealing with his, I think, nagging injury for weeks now. Jones has missed games. So, it's tough because, again, nobody's going to make excuses for you. And, the committee's not going to sit there and really say, oh, well, you missed your guys, so we'll give you a pass in Stillwater. That's just not how it works. And plus, there's going to be other teams right now that are surging to try to get to that 2 line. And so I don't, this isn't like I mentioned that like the sky isn't falling for Iowa State, but at the same time, like if you don't get Gilbert back and if this thing continues to linger, now you got to figure out how to combat it. Now you got to figure out how to solidify roles enough to where you don't have the high turnover problems like you did tonight. Because that's what that comes from. The instability and the unpredictability in roles is what leads to a high turnover rate most times. And I think that was the case tonight. So I still think that if they get Gilbert back, yes, there's going to be a reacclimation process, just like there always is. And you got to find that continuity and it's got to happen quick. So, I mean, we'll see just like down the stretch here when you look at how they finish things. I mean, it's Arizona, it's BYU, and then they're wrapping up on the road in Manhattan with Kansas State. And we've seen like there's been teams that have gone in there and lost. So you can't slide and again make your way towards that 4 line with dropping 3 or 4 games here down the stretch.
All right, let's turn back to the SEC here. How about this from our buddy Jared Burson as Alabama beats Mississippi State 111 to 73. So this from Burson postgame. Alabama's 22 3-pointers tonight versus Mississippi State are the most ever by a team in a win over an AP top 25 opponent, ever. The Crimson Tide have scored 100-plus points versus 4 ranked opponents this season, the most 100-point outings versus ranked foes by any team since Kansas 2001-02. Tyler Hansbrough, 111 to 73. Sometimes we're concerned about Alabama defensively, but you can never waver on this team's scoring ability. Chris Youngblood with 27, Mark Sears with 21. What makes you be the man at the top of the parade float for Alabama? Give me the pitch of why you think the Crimson Tide will cut down the nets.
Well, I like their combination. They have older players. Amorie, he's a 5th-year guy. Mark Sears, he's an older guy. Grant Nelson, also, he has some deep tournament run experience. But also their ability to play with pace and also think athletically. When you look at Amorie, Grant Nelson, and even Sherrell, those guys can control the paint when they're not hitting shots. They can get rebounds. They can just win multiple ways. And I think the fact that They have these veteran guys that have experience. I think that has a lot of, I think that really helps teams when it comes to the tournament and being able to prepare. I like that fact. I know that Mark Sears, he's faced some criticism, and he's responded. He's responded in a positive way. He's continued to play well. Even when he was criticized and wasn't playing well, he's bounced back. He's a Mark Sears, starting to play like the guy we thought he was going to be preseason. But also they have multiple weapons. The Chris Youngblood kid, he was a torch tonight. He lit him up. Had a big first half. And also the Holloway kid, he's kind of an underrated player. He can come in and he can light you up as well. He's athletic. They have length. They have everything that you want in a team, really, that can make a deep tournament run. That's why I'm out here pushing Alabama. I'm on the float, and I'm the picture guy for Alabama, trying to hype them up. But I've been on board with Alabama all year.
Michael?
Well, I agree with Tyler. We can talk about the players. I've talked about their lineup optionality all year, their athleticism, their shooting ability, all that stuff. Can we talk about the coach? I mean, seriously. I mean, Nate Oates, this is one of the most complete performances of the season for Alabama tonight. And honestly, you can look at the 22 threes. It started on the defensive end tonight. And that's been a point of emphasis for Nate Oates. And I think his coaching job this year, and you can look at it and say, I know we always look at coaches of the year, it's got to be a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere. Team, he was projected X and ended up Y. This is obviously an Alabama team that I think was number 2 preseason, and Nate Oates isn't satisfied. And he knows that this was a really tough stretch and going to be a tough stretch schedule-wise, and he's continued to challenge his team. I mean, just sit here and think about this, right? You shelf your All-American in the LSU game, which just that alone, you have to have some balls on you to do, and confidence in the rest of your team to do, and confidence in Mark Sears that it's not going to have a negative effect on his game. You do that because, the standard wasn't being met from an effort and from a defensive standpoint. And then you also say, hey, you know what? We're going to shift the starting lineup. We're going to put another on-ball guard next to Sears. And we're going to tell you, Mark, your efficiency is going to go up. You're still going to score at the level you are. We're just going to make you more efficient with what you do. So he did that. And then last game, and he knows that if there's anything that's going to stop this team, it's the defense. And he is so fixated, I think, on chasing a title that he will not settle. And last game against Kentucky, if you made a scouting report error, and the same thing went for tonight, you made a scouting report error defensively, you're out. He made 8 subs in the first 6 minutes of that game against Kentucky because guys went under screens, guys lost Kobe Brea. Maybe you didn't box out your guy, you didn't follow the scout on Andrew Carr. We wanted to stay off of him, and you committed all the way out to him and left a driving lane for Perry to get downhill and score a layup. Like he is on it right now. And we saw in the beginning of this game, they jumped on Mississippi State, not only because they made threes to start the game, it started defensively. They weren't comfortable, and guys didn't make scouting report errors. So I think he deserves so much credit for continuing to just not settle, knowing that you have a title contending team and saying that it's not good enough. And that to me, that is coaching at the highest level. And then just tonight, I mean, the 22 threes, we can get into that for a second. I mean, Mississippi State, when they've lost this year, they've gotten torched. I mean, their last 5 losses before this, all double-digit threes, one of those being Alabama in Starkville, 15 threes. They overcommit to the ball. They send 2, they load up, and it's good night when you face a team like Alabama that's got it going on both ends. You're going to lose by 30 plus.
You think about this for a moment, right? Alabama basketball since 1991, before 2021, had gone to the Sweet 16 of the tournament one time, 2004. One time. This guy has taken them to 3 of the last 4 second weekends, takes them to the school's first ever Final Four last year, just their second Elite 8. And this year, could make a second consecutive Final Four. He's going to do a fourth Sweet 16 in 5 years. Like, whoever gets stuck having to play them in the first 2 rounds, forget it. Just hand him the ticket. I'll be shocked. I will eat my shirt. I mean, nobody has to see that, but like, come on, man. That's not happening. Like, this guy, Mike, what you just said is so spot on. And Tyler, I want to get your thoughts on this. Like, the stones that it took for him to bench Sears, the stones that it takes, how many coaches right now are trying to, like, still press a button? You know how many coaches are freaking tired? They're like, you know what? Like, my team is, we are what we are. That's the difference between a guy who's like, let me win a game or two, or excuse me, let me win 3 games and it's a fine year, versus a guy, Tyler, who's like, I want to win the whole freaking thing. He's as good as anybody in the sport.
Yeah, and Fanta, that's one thing I've said about the transfer portal and this whole NIL era is it is taking away the ability to really coach kids hard. And I've gained a whole new respect for some of these coaches that come in and still do it the right way, because kids need discipline. And that is like part of that of being a great coach is knowing how to discipline your team. And Nate Oates doing that, that was great to see. I've got a lot of respect for him from that aspect. And there's other guys out there that still coach hard and will still get on teams. But I think that this, kind of this era of college basketball, I think a lot of coaches are a little hesitant to get on players like they used to. And, I can't imagine Bobby Knight in this era. A guy like him who, every former player who's played for Knight, they have a lot of respect for him. I've heard nothing but good things, but he was a disciplined coach, and kids need that. And, that's one thing that I've gained respect for Nate Oates, but also I gained a lot of respect for Mark Sears, taking the criticism and then responding in a positive way, fixing his attitude, adjusting the way he plays a game, and doing what he needs to do to help his team. That was just something that is good to see, and that's the way you should handle it.
Tyler, could you have played for Bobby Knight?
That would have been a tough one, fans. I could have, but it definitely would have tested me. Yes, I would not have hit the portal. I would have stuck it out.
Have you ever thrown a chair?
Not yet. I've kicked a chair, but never thrown one.
Not yet.
It's even dumber.
You kicked a chair. When did you kick a chair?
Yeah, you just get mad. And you just, playing pickup, and the chair's right there, and you just happen to see the first thing after a couple missed shots or a couple elbows. Just walk over there and kick it. So,
if you were to lose to Jeff Goodman in ping pong, would you kick a chair?
That's not going to happen. Jeff Goodman, that's not going to happen.
Let's move to the Big Ten. All right, Mike LaTulip. I want you to be the conductor of the train here. All right? I'm only half, I'm a little half and half here on the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did Illinois show you tonight in an 81-61 win over Iowa that they are back?
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Okay.
This is this is a step in the right direction. Okay. I mean, it's no secret. This was probably as rough of a 3-game stretch as, Brad Underwood and Illinois have had in the last few years. I mean, considering the success that they had, I thought, a lot of their confidence was zapped. And tonight was really important to try to find that swagger again, to try to find that juice and kind of get the joy back in playing after 3 really, really rough losses. But look, they went with their most talented starting lineup tonight, and that featured Will Riley. And he's come off the bench really all year. They inserted him. They rolled with that group for the first 8 minutes of the game. They made it a point. We're getting in the paint, and we're going to do it in a variety of ways. We're either going to clear a side and have a Vicic roll to the rim. They got him going early. And if Vicic pops out to the top of the key, we're going to have guys slip into the basket. That's going to be another form of paint touch that we get. And not only that, building this lead like they did in the second half, I sat there and I'm writing down. I said, can you shut the door? Can you shut the door? Because that to me is a real sign of progress and a step forward, because they haven't been able to do that at times this year. They've built leads. The UCLA game was a great example. You're up 16 with whatever it is, 6 minutes, 7 minutes left, and that thing gets cut to 2, gets cut to 3.
How did they do it tonight? What was different? What was different that allowed them to do it tonight? How'd they do it?
Yeah, just valuing possessions. Their the turnovers were low tonight. They didn't give them free opportunities. An Iowa team that they're not they haven't been great this year, but they're still a top 30 offense in the country since February 1st. So they still have that combustibility in them, especially if you turn it over, especially if you let them get out in the open floor. So that was really, really positive tonight. And Ivisic too is a guy that was battling mono, ankle injury, sickness, flu, the whole 9. Just have him come out and knowing this was a game where you needed to own the paint, and he did that. 9 for 13 from the field, 22 points, and he got his confidence going early. And he gets it too in a variety of ways, not only just scoring the ball, but him being a fulcrum and a real pillar at the top of the key with a lot of what they want to run offensively when Kasper Shakashonis isn't the one handling it. So this was a complete performance tonight for Illinois. And it's got to give you some confidence moving forward as you go and play a team in Ann Arbor in Michigan that has their sights set on sharing or winning an outright Big Ten title. They got something to play for, just like Iowa had something to play for tonight, trying to get into the Big Ten tournament. Now that all the teams don't get in, so everybody's got something to play for here late. And Illinois, they're a young team, and they're learning. Right, they've learned through conference play what it takes to be consistent. And tonight was the closest we've seen to a full 40 minutes for them in probably the last month.
Yeah, quick Big Ten standings check. Michigan State and Michigan tied at 13-3. Obviously, they end the regular season against each other, what could be for the conference regular season crown. Michigan State owns that tiebreaker, having gone to Ann Arbor now and won. Huge week for the Spartans. They are at Maryland tomorrow night. I can't wait to see College Park on fire. Cannot wait. And then heading into Saturday, you're talking about Michigan State and Wisconsin. That game, though, is from East Lansing's. Michigan State will be back home, and they have Minnesota. Or rather, Wisconsin has Minnesota and Penn State themselves. But Michigan State at 13-3 now, you go from Maryland to Wisconsin to at Iowa and then to Michigan. So quite the stretch. Tyler, you were watching Illinois. What's your opinion watching Illinois?
Man, I like Illinois and hate Illinois. And so here's the reason why.
Welcome to every Illinois fan. Welcome to every Illinois fan this year.
Well said.
I just my first opinion is I think what's really missing from Illinois for a deep tournament run is a bulldog down low. I think they need a big physical guy that doesn't care about scoring, that just controls the boards and just going to go out there and knock people around. And I pull up their resume and I look at what they've done. They have a very good resume, and they don't have many bad losses. Their worst loss is probably USC. 6 quad 1 wins. I love KJ. I've always said that. I think he's a smart player. I think he's a player that you can give the ball in an ISO situation that will not only get you a bucket but also make the right play. And I think he's continued to improve. And I think they've had guys that have stepped up and shown some spurts of playing very well. Will they put it all together and continue to, build and make up for their lack of physicality? I don't know. I mean, Ivisic, he's a guy that, has size, has length, but, he's not the, he's not the most physical big out there. But, that's just my thought about Illinois. And, I will look at Illinois after they played Michigan and Purdue to try to get a final judgment on them. It's very weird to say this about a team this late into the season. I just quite haven't really I thought I liked them early on. Now I'm starting to guess myself, especially after the no-show against Duke, which, Duke's a contender. So that's where I'm at with Illinois.
Quick, Mike, go ahead. Then we'll break.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, what you're alluding to, Tyler, I mean, the guy that they're missing right now is Merez Johnson, who can be that guy, who doesn't care about scoring, who doesn't care about the points, right? He wants to grab boards. He wants to set screens. He wants to put his body on someone, and they're hoping that they can get him back for the Big Ten tournament. If they do that, that's a guy opposed to like a Keyshawn Gilbert that really has a lot of high volume and usage that you got to reintegrate. A guy like Merez Johnson, you can reintegrate immediately because he doesn't demand the ball. He's not high usage. He just plays his role. So if they can get him back, I think that helps this team as they get into March and have some more guys out there that I think that they can trust, and certainly Merez Johnson's one of those.
We got a break. Up next, we head to Chapel Hill, where something quiet happened in December, and now it is very loud. This is After Dark.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. Would you be surprised to find out that the Field of 68 is home to more than 35 podcasts? More than 25 team-specific podcasts that are hosted by the people that know what fans want the most. The Goodman and Humble podcast, the DTF podcast, the A10 Insider podcast, and the Mountain West podcast. But wait, there's even more. The Field of 68 will be launching the ACC Insider podcast this year. Subscribe to this channel and come along for the ride.
Welcome back to the Field 68 After Dark. Let's get to the breaking news story of the day. This gets out via the News Gazette earlier that Hubert Davis, from the News and Observer, that Hubert Davis and North Carolina had agreed on an amendment to his contract and an extension through the 2029-2030 season. Davis named the 2024 ACC Coach of the Year. Signed this deal on December the 4th, 2024, so just before the new year. It pays Davis a base salary of $1.25 million a year, plus supplemental compensation, increased to $2.2 million in the final year of the contract. Elsewhere at North Carolina, they announced that longtime NBA agent and UNC graduate Jim Tanner has been hired to be the general manager of the men's basketball program. So Tyler Hansbrough, a contract extension through 2029-2030 in the midst of being firmly on the bubble and on the outside looking in still really and needing to beat Duke in all likelihood. And now a general manager. There's a lot happening. This was an eyebrow raiser, to say the least, in the midst of there being real pressure in Chapel Hill. What's your reaction?
Hey, we're just giving money out at UNC. I mean, we got Belichick in town. We got the HD extension, general managers coming through. You know what, Fanta, what I understand that this extension was agreed upon in the summer, and they just signed it this December. I'm not really sure how how true that is, but you know what, you can make an argument that HD's been Coach Davis has done a very good job. First year national championship runner-up. Then last year, ACC, I think, regular season champs, and then we got a number one seed. The only problem that a lot of Carolina fans are, frustrated with, and this is no secret, is the peaks and valleys. We'd like to be somewhere in between. But I think this is good. I mean, hopefully this gives, a little more confidence to recruits and gives our ability to really recruit the portal with confidence and knowing that kids are going to come here and play for Coach Davis when that happens.
Mike, your thoughts?
I'm on board with it. I think all the talk earlier in the season of letting go Hubert and making a change, or should they make a change, I think it's always about making the distinction of like whether that's a reaction or a solution. And to me, this is a solution, because the Tanner hire is an acknowledgement of what I believe has plagued this team, and that's just roster construction, flat out. And I know that because in the announcement for Tanner, they mentioned roster construction, I think 3 times in there. So it's very clear that they have that on their mind as well. And they're at least self-aware in that regard. But this reallocating of responsibilities, I think, is helpful because now, like any coach you talk to, Fanta, you and I talked to Pat Kelsey, and I asked him what his number one box he checked as he's a coach. Like, what's the most important thing to you? Talent acquisition. And North Carolina didn't necessarily have that this year. And they had some good returning pieces like RJ Davis. What I think Hubert realized as the season started was like, oh, RJ Davis hits the RJ Davis peaks when he has a big that he can play off of, throw into, and if they double, he's playing in space, he can be a catch and shoot guy and still do his work off the bounce. All that is incredibly important. So I just think there's a small percentage of coaches in America who can take a semi-talented team and not have all the requisite talent that you need to compete at the highest level and take that team to that highest level. I just think it's really, really hard. And so now that you get the roster construction piece allocated elsewhere, it puts the spotlight on Hubert Davis, whether it's in-game coaching, how you manage a group, being the CEO of a team. The spotlight shifts to that, right? And if you get the talent influx and you can't do those things now I think the conversation really picks up. If you can't optimize those rosters of talent that you should have coming in and getting North Carolina back to what I think is they're not far off. They're not far off from being North Carolina again. This thing can change in a year, and I think they're primed to do that. And I actually like the fact that they're not trying to rock the boat and they're just addressing the pitfalls that they've had this season.
Well, this is more important than toast of the night here. Tyler, don't you think it has to then? I mean, if you're going to get the pieces in place here, you're going to spend money, you're going to have a GM, now the talent acquisition piece is there. We see it get turned all the time. Like, obviously you hope you make the tournament this year, but let's just say you do not. 2 out of 3 in Chapel Hill. It's nothing against the coach. It's just the standard. Like, if you're going to put these things in place, I don't care if the extension's through 2030. They're going to walk into next year. They have to be able to be near the top of the country.
Yeah, you're right. I hate the word roster construction. You know what? You've got to recruit the portal, and hopefully this GM will give us the ability to get a head start on portal guys and then actually get talent that actually we have these plug-and-play guys. I guess a lot of, frustration comes out of some of the portal guys that we've gotten, sometimes haven't been the best fit for Carolina. And, hopefully this GM situation will help put us on par with other teams that are doing the same and hiring a GM. It's just, it's just a no-brainer, and we're just late to the game doing it.
Yeah, other programs have been proactive. For North Carolina, a little bit reactive. It had to happen now. It does happen now. Extension or not, Hubert Davis will definitely next year head into it with pressure on him to get it going. For Tyler, from Mike, I'm John Fanta. Thanks for tuning in to After Dark. See you tomorrow. After's next.
We're live. It's the afters. Hit the chat.
I'm not getting close to any bear.
My career high on the court is 28. Look, it's the afters on a Tuesday night. John Fanta, Tyler Hansbrough, Mike LaTulip. I think that is what we just were talking about. We could talk forever about because, like the Craig Smith thing at Utah, the timing was strange. And it's not going to be the last time we see it, Mike, where an AD says, all right, I want to be proactive. I got to get out in front of things. I got to go make my search. But, if you don't have the first question's got to be this: what are you putting into your bank account? What resources are you allocating? Who do you have on staff? Are you helping the coach succeed? Your role as an AD and as an administration is no longer just sit around and make sure the team makes it to the hotel on time and line up their stuff. It's much more than that. And it's easy to sit in a seat and fire somebody. But, Mike, if you're going to do the same thing systematically over and over and over again, and then you look in the mirror and you're like, well, what are we We believe in winning and we believe in BS. I think for Carolina, I get it. I could get if fans are pissed off, they should be. The standards are higher than this. But do I understand that Carolina's been they've been kind of in the tortoise and the hare. They've been the tortoise when compared to other blue bloods and moving forward and getting a GM and putting the money in and doing the things systematically. Yeah, like that. This is sport wide. If you don't have a general manager and you're a high major, you are messing it up.
It's true. I mean, you're exactly right, Fanta. I think this is the way things are going to be structured moving forward for a lot of the serious programs, right? And the general manager responsibilities, it feels like there's a different job description, every program to program, right? But for this one, it's very cut and dry what Tanner would come in and do. And I think that only helps. So, yeah, I mean, look, North Carolina and, we've seen Kansas this year. I mean, there's things that, teams that we've been used to seeing over the years, programs that I would call, Kansas is definitely up there too. I mean, these are some of the most consistent programs throughout my lifetime that we've seen have a little bit more turbulence than I think we've been used to. And there was always just going to be this shuffling of the deck when the NIL and the portal era came in. And for a lot of the, we see it with Alabama football. I mean, it's all over sports in general. And it's how soon you want to get with the times. And I think this is a big step forward for Carolina. Now, what you do with it is a whole different thing, right? That I can send somebody a job description and they could step in there day one and the thing is completely different. So, sticking to what that job is and truly focusing on roster construction and utilizing, I mean, I said in the announcement, he's got 28 years of relationships and experience. I mean, we'll see how much that helps. That's, the getting into the role is one thing and succeeding in it is another. And how that actually helps Hubert Davis is a completely different story. Because again, like I talked about it, you're the CEO of a team and you manage a team, and then you also have the X's and O's component. But how else are you allocating that throughout your staff? Because that's what assistant coaches are there for too. So as much as we want to put everything on a head coach, another thing that they have to do is delegate. And the allocation of responsibilities, I think, is going to be just key moving forward here to see what you really got with Hubert Davis when all these pieces are in place.
Hey, Tyler, I got a question here from the YouTube chat. And it's, would you rather be the guy that holds the ladder for Duke, cutting down the nets in San Antonio, or have all your ping pong skills given to Jeff Goodman?
I'd rather give all my ping pong skills to Jeff Goodman. That's easy, no question. It'd be nice for Duke to do something when they get to the Final Four. Last time I think they made the Final Four was in New Orleans, right? I think it's Hubert hasn't had a great year, but he's given us a lot of great memories. Smacking Duke in the biggest stage in the rivalry at the Final Four right before K retired was a great one. So I always remember that night. I was there in New Orleans, Fanta. I celebrated, took it to Bourbon Street, had a good time. I thought I won the national championship that night. Yeah.
And in some ways, maybe you did.
It was a great night.
Do you remember what time you went to bed?
It was mid-morning. I took that one all. That was I stayed out late. I had all the college buddies out there. I mean, it was a weird scene. I had the crowd from both. Duke was there. They were kind of crying their sorrows, and UNC we were really getting after it, celebrating. So, but listen, that all ended on Monday night when Kansas beat us. So,
right now, would you rather hold the ladder for Duke or Kentucky?
I'm not holding the ladder for Duke or Kentucky. I'm not making it out there, Fanta. They're gonna listen. There's no way. There's a lot of things I want to say that are not appropriate for this show when it comes to me holding the ladder for any of those programs cutting the net down at the championship game.
Now I have one other question, LaTulip. Would you sacrifice Trevor Valise to the basketball gods for an Illinois national title? That was
Jeez.
so long, Trevor. Happy trails, Trev. Goodbye. See ya.
That's tough.
I don't
That's
know where
that's a
Trev-
tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, Illinois has been. I mean, 05 they were close to where I wouldn't even have to do that with Trevor. But I think Trevor understands. I mean, I think they asked Caleb Williams in the offseason if he'd have to like kill one person to get 10 Bears Super Bowls, and he was like, "Yeah," just like without hesitation. So.
Oh my God. I did not have that on the programming tonight. I didn't. Wow. I thought Illini people stuck together. Trev says he would get it, to be quite honest. It sounds like he would be interested in another type of sacrifice if the same question were offered to him. Okay.
He'd sacrifice me. I'd understand it. He'd sacrifice me.
Let's go around the country with a couple other scores before we get out of here. Baylor is really on the bubble, guys. I mean, they could miss the NCAA tournament. You just said it, Mike. Like I actually, Mike, when Georgia won tonight, I'm like, well, I think they'll probably figure out a way to make the tournament. Like they have a couple, and then I'm like, wait a minute. On these bracketologies, they're not in the field. Like their resume's better than teams that are on the 10 and 11 line. I'm just saying, like Baylor loses to Cincinnati. Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Brand. Like it's brand and preseason expectations. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, but Baylor's been one of the biggest disappointments in the country. I mean, we thought they'd be a top 10-ish team. They're 16 and 12. They're 16 and 12. The net, like this is where the net, it's hard to buy everything the net says. You do have the AQ1 and Q2 two wins. Georgia's got 6. But like, I just, the resume average of 39.3, the quality average of 26 is a strength. Thank you, Dagan, for giving us that wonderful graphic. Cincinnati, now people are like, well, they're in a position to be in a position. They're still on the outside looking, and they make 10 threes tonight. Where's the Cincinnati team been all year? The fact is, if you're Baylor and you're on the bubble and now you're 16 and 12, Mike, like, you got to win a game like tonight.
Yeah, you do. And there's really, I mean, it's not like they lack talent. I mean, they have enough talent to where they should be competitive or more competitive in the Big 12 conference. It's just, I thought early in the year they couldn't figure out what they wanted to do defensively. They were switching 5 ways and they kind of abandoned it. Then they went to some zone and they've kind of been all over the place with that. And I know Roach was in and out of the lineup at 1.2. They've had none too. Like they've had some injuries at times, but so have a lot of teams across the country. And I just think with Wright and a lot of these guys in the team, Omier, like Edgecombe, I mean, they have a roster that should be an NCAA tournament team. But to me, I think their resume screams on the outside of the tournament compared to these other teams when we just talked about it. But yeah, I mean, they got work to do here down the stretch if they want to feel good about it. Because we know too, I mean, heading in the NCAA tournament and as the committee looks at it, momentum is a big piece as well.
Tyler, not good. If you're the Baylor Bears right now, you're sweating, man.
Yeah, I'd be sweating too. Fanta, don't overlook Cincinnati. They're not a bad team. They don't have any quad 3, quad 4 losses. They have some pieces. Dylan Mitchell's a good player. I thought Baylor kind of at the end of the game, I thought they went to Norchad Omier at the ISO ball at the top of the key, and he kept getting turnovers. I thought that was a bad play, but Baylor didn't play their best game tonight. But Cincinnati's a quality team as well. I mean, they're making a little bit of a case for a tournament bid right now, and they have Houston Saturday, so that would be a heck of a win for them. They need that one, but I think they have some pieces. Jizzle James, he can get you a bucket, and then also Lukosius. He's had it. He started out the year pretty hot, so Cincinnati has some pieces. Just putting it together and getting some wins at the end of the year would be big for their resume.
Let's move to Missouri. Missouri, look, they handled business tonight. No surprise here. But by the same token, like I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on this Tigers team. 101-71, they beat South Carolina. Caleb Grill, I mean, he had 22 points. He comes off the bench. He's not a bench player. He's a sixth starter. 9 of 11 from the floor. They took 63 shots. And Mike, 11 of 19 from 3. I mean, you got to give Dennis Gates a boatload of credit here after the way last year went. And look, are they a great defensive team? No, they're not. When they're locked in on that end of the floor, though, Mike, and they guard, because they seem to guard against big-time opponents, like the numbers check out, the shot-making checks out. I almost wonder if we're underselling the Tigers and what they've done against the big boys in terms of their ability to make it to an Elite Eight.
If you've heard me on this show, the one thing I have not done is undersell the Missouri Tigers. I've been a fan of them from the jump. And Dennis Gates, I'll say it again, 0-18 in conference play last year. And I get there's been coaches that have come in and turned over programs. 0-18 in conference play, and it's the same coach and kind of pulling it back up to where it is right now. That doesn't happen. That's so rare in college basketball. But look, I mean, you look at Bart Torvik. I mean, since February 1st, they're the number 2 team in college basketball per Bart Torvik, right? And their offense is also number 2. And that's a big reason for it. I mean, they're so dynamic. They spread you out. I think Caleb Grill is an NBA player. I mean, I hate to make this type of comparison, but when he had the dunk after the whistle the other night against Alabama, and did kind of like the cradle reverse dunk. I mean, there's a lot of Max Strus to his game, and I wouldn't doubt if he has at least a cup of coffee in the league, and like that's a guy that's coming off your bench. And so they shoot it, they spread you out, they run really good stuff offensively, and then defensively, you touched on it. Yeah, there's ebbs and flows for sure, but the one thing they do is turn you over, and they continue to win that margin game in and game out. The one thing going into March is like if I were going to have one thing with Mizzou that could hold them back is they do foul a lot, and they do send their opponent to the line a lot. And even tonight, South Carolina shoots 25 free throws, goes 21 for 25. It was still a 30-point game. Right. But those are the types of things that when you're playing a team that's, more offensively sound than a South Carolina, if they're making shots and getting downhill and you're sending and they're taking care of the ball and you're sending them to the free throw line, that's where I think this Missouri Tigers team could run into trouble. But I mean, we talk about this every year. I mean, why can't Missouri make a Final Four? I mean, and I know it's like you say that, and it's like, well, you can't put them in that category. It was 2 years ago, San Diego State and Florida Atlantic were there. So why can't I put Missouri in that category? It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility at all to see this type of team make a run like that.
We've never seen Mizzou make the Final Four. Never seen it. Made the Elite Eight in 09, Tyler.
Listen, where am I on the Missouri Tigers? I don't know if they're a contender or they're Elite Eight team. They have not gotten the hype that they deserve. They have players. They have no bad losses. They have no quad 2, quad 3, quad 4 losses, if I'm looking at their resume right. And you know what I am.
You're correct.
Yes. And, they have guys that are dynamic. They have guys that can win multiple ways. Mark Mitchell, he's a guy that can lock somebody down. He's athletic. He has length. Watched him play a lot at Duke. And they also have guys that come in off the bench that control the paint. Josh Gray doesn't care about scoring. He just comes in there and he just bangs and he gets rebounds, controls the paint, and he's physical. Dennis Gates has done a great job. He's in that category for Coach of the Year. But I think that Mizzou is a dark horse when we're talking about teams that could make a deep run and possibly slip into the Final Four when it comes tournament time. And also, you got to give them credit. They didn't get a lot of preseason hype, and I wouldn't give them any hype off the year they had last year either. But they have risen to the top in the SEC. They're one of the better teams and one of the more underrated teams in college basketball right now.
Yeah. What about Wisconsin? The Badgers blew out Washington 88-62. John Blackwell. We often talk about Tanjay and Klesmit, Mike, but Blackwell, the 6'4" sophomore, like this is a guy who last year was averaging in single digits. He wasn't much of a distributor. Now he's close to 3 assists per game. His 3-point figures have actually gone down, but tonight 24 and 10. I think he's a sneaky good rebounder. And this is a Badgers team. Like I expected them to handle business. But I am really interested to see what their March looks like, Mike, because they've been one of those teams that for the last 5-6 weeks, this Wisconsin team has really come on and looks dangerous and looks extremely tough to guard. And if you haven't seen them, what I'm saying is first, second round, Sweet 16 opponents who haven't, it's hard to simulate, Mike, how balanced they are from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, again, Greg Gard has leaned into it over the years, having not just one. I mean, teams don't necessarily build their teams point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center anymore. The ones that just say, hey, we need a point guard, we need wings around them. Those are the teams that unless your point guard's really good and can handle a lot of that responsibility, you get in trouble. Wisconsin doesn't have that problem because over the years they've done this. They've said, we're not only going to have 2 ball handlers and creators, we're usually going to have 3. And not only that, we're going to have those 3 on the floor at the same time. So Tanjay and Blackwell and Klesmit and these guys, I mean, the ability to get downhill, to spread you out, the way they shoot the ball, and the reason why they put you in such a bind is, you're already stretched out. So there's more driving lanes for them. And then when they get you off balance and you foul them, again, they're shooting free throws better than anyone ever has. Like if they keep up this percentage, the last I checked, they could break the NCAA record for free throws. So it's a big reason why their offensive efficiency is where it is, top 10 in the country. I think 7 right now. But the thing that I'm looking at with Wisconsin, and on the year they have been great on the glass, but these past few games they have. And it's the offensive rebounds, getting 13, 14, 15 offensive rebounds back. For an offense that's already at this high of a level, to get extra opportunities and more bites at the apple makes it even more difficult for defenses, puts even more strain on defenses. Blackwell was incredible tonight. He's been a guy that, again, has contributed, I think, to that rebounding that I'm talking about. Because those guys all, when you have 3 guards in the backcourt like that, they need to be able to rebound outside of their position, right? Range rebound, and they do that. And so, this Wisconsin team has just continued to hit an upward trajectory. And I think that Oregon game, look, you're up 16 or whatever it was with 6 minutes left. I felt like that was kind of a splash of water to the face. And like, hey, we know what we're capable of. We had a Big Ten share of the Big Ten title kind of in our grasp. Well, they need some things to happen. But man, I haven't wavered on the fact that this is a team that can make a really, really deep run, and on the backs of a guy in John Tanjay that, has a really good chance of ending up as the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Tyler, quickly, SEC, Tennessee beat LSU 65-59. Chaz Lanier had 14 and 9. Zakai Ziegler with 17. Pretty far from it. That's not Tennessee. Where do you categorize the Vols near the top of the country?
I mean, they're Elite Eight in my opinion. Rick Barnes just has this style defensively. They're going to rebound, play great defense. That's going to win you a certain amount of games. My only question is, are they going to have the ability to score come tournament time? And when they need buckets, how are they going to get them? Chaz Lanier, he's provided them a lot of scoring, but, outside of him, I don't see much there that's really going to help them. I know I like Zakai Ziegler, and I think that, he's a veteran guard, but, I think they're limited when it comes to scoring, in my opinion.
I think that's it, Mike. Yeah.
I think they've just become really difficult to forecast, haven't they? I mean, there's times where, even in this game today, yes, you hold LSU without a field goal for 7 minutes, but then you look at the score and you still haven't created enough separation to, a lot of times the team goes scoreless for 7 minutes and you blow that thing out to 20. And it was still after that 7 minutes, it was an 8-point game and LSU wasn't out of the fight at all. So those are some things that I worry about with Tennessee. Now, I do think, there are still those things to like about them. I mean, the experience, the defensive prowess, obviously, the rebounding, the combustibility, I think, from Chaz Lanier. I think there's no question. I could totally see a Sweet 16 game where he hits 7 threes and he does what he did against Texas A&M. But Ziegler, he's been really consistent recently. I mean, this is his, I think, 6th straight game now of 15-plus points. They need that from him just to continue to put pressure on the paint. Akpara was really solid tonight as well. He continues to be that lob threat and anchor defensively for them. But again, I keep coming back to it. I don't know what it is about them really all year that, whether it's putting them towards that top of the SEC or putting them towards the top of that, contending teams nationally. There's always something that kind of holds me back with them. And I think it is those dry spells offensively, because it takes one against a good team in the NCAA tournament in the round of 32 or in the Sweet 16, and that can send you home if you don't capitalize on it. So I think that's what's holding me back with this Tennessee team.
And last but not least in our whip around, Mike LaTulip, Louisville 71, Virginia Tech 66. The Cardinals are 22-6. I mean, Mike, I know the ACC is what it is, but it could be it could be easy for them to be 19-9, 18-10. No, very few slip ups in the ACC. I mean, you look at the standings in this league; they're 15-2. Mike, what's impressed you the most about Kelsey year one?
I mean, they've lost one game in the last 2 months. It's crazy. And the fact that they haven't had a clean bill of health this whole year, they've had guys in and out of the rotation. And I think, Fanta, when you and I talked to Kelsey, I think it was very clear. I mean, he has created a culture and a mindset over there where it's just, he says it, right? It's always about the next thing. It's the next thing. It's the next thing. And that allows you to not become complacent. That allows you to not say, hey, you know what? This is just it's just a night in Coral Gables, right? And it's a bad Miami team, and it's going to be a letdown. There's no letdowns with this team. You can talk about maybe the one about a month ago against Georgia Tech, but I think every team across the country has had some sort of letdown at some point, and so yeah, I mean, and Chucky Hepburn, we just talked about Wisconsin. And I've talked about it before with him being able to go from timeshare with ball handling responsibilities at Wisconsin to, yeah, man, put on my shoulders. I'll be the guy. I'll man the ship. That's just been really impressive. Just watching I watch a ton of Wisconsin games with him there, and his maturation and his, he's always had it defensively, but he's taken it to another level at Louisville. He's taken his the way he steers a team from the point guard spot to another level at Louisville. And my God, if you're Pat Kelsey, he's been a godsend for you this year, just with his consistency. And all those guys, I think, have played their roles to a T. And that's what uplifts you. That's what pushes you over the top and gives you confidence night in and night out, is everybody understanding their role, first of all, and then going out there and execute. This Louisville team does that at a really, really high level.
All right. Toast the night, Tyler Hansbrough. Start us off. Who you toasting on this wonderful Tuesday evening?
Since we just touched on it, I'm going to go Pat Kelsey, his turnaround, Louisville. They got a big dub tonight, just doing his thing. And Chucky Hepburn playing unbelievable. I'm with you, Mike, on that. I'm going to give him a toast.
Love it. Big time. Hepburn's been phenomenal. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, my toast is going to go to Chris Youngblood. I think he was awesome tonight for Alabama in a game that, again, Nate Oates has been stressing the defensive end, and then he goes out there and knocks down a barrage of threes, and it leads to the 22 threes that Alabama hits. But going off the toast of the night, I do have a question for you, Fanta. This is,
yes, sir.
I want an honest answer here. Okay.
Yep.
You look puzzled at what I'm about to ask you, but
nobody ever asked me a question. So go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm asking you. You have a choice. Okay. Browns Super Bowl, but if it happens, popcorn is gone. No more popcorn. It's over.
Wow, that's a really tough question, man. Oh, man. Oh, boy, I want the Lombardi Trophy so bad. I'll take the Super Bowl, man. I can live without it.
There you go.
I'll live without it for the rest. If it means that my team is winning a Lombardi Trophy, I will cry. I mean, you will see real tears. I will party like when Tyler did in New Orleans, probably times 10. Like times 10. Like, I mean, I'll have a snake on my neck, like one of those Bourbon Street, the yellow snakes. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I think I saw John Gruden with one of those around his neck.
Sounds right.
Fanta, that will never happen.
Oh, thank you, Tyler. That was really that's really reassuring to me. Thank you. I know that's true. It's probably
gave up Baker Mayfield, man.
Yeah, right. Baker Mayfield will never sniff a conference championship game. I mean, come on.
You're talking to a big Baker Mayfield guy right here, and he will.
I'm gonna.
You got to eat a shirt. You got to eat a shirt if Baker Mayfield goes to an NFC Championship.
Sure, but add another shirt to my plate. Add another shirt to my plate. Go ahead. Go right ahead. I am going to toast Preston Spradlin and James Madison because tonight they clinched at least a share of the Sun Belt Conference regular season title. Coach Byington leaves, and then you're wondering what's James Madison going to be. It's just a really good program. It's a great school. I think it's a really nice job. Beautiful campus down there. I've been down there. It's beautiful. They're 13-4 in the league. Tonight they get another win. It came over Louisiana Monroe. Mark Freeman. Mark Freeman's a bucket, man. He had 27 points off the bench. They've had a great year from Bryce Lindsey. He's a freshman from Baltimore who only played 8 games last year and is averaging 13. Tonight he had 20. Shout out to the Dukes. Yet again, James Madison could be on the bracket. And Coach Spradlin's a really good coach. Don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on JMU, man. Those and their fans travel. They traveled up to Brooklyn last year. They outnumbered Wisconsin fans. And the game wasn't close. So I think it's a really fun mid-major place. And they're winning at a high level again. That's going to do it for us, for Mike LaTulip, for Tyler Hansbrough. I've got 2 shirts I think I might have to eat. The Browns, maybe someday, man. I'm going to hold out hope. Thanks to Dagan Hughes. Thanks to Trevor. We're back at 11 tomorrow night. Michigan State, Maryland's going to highlight our slate. I can't wait. This has been After Dark.